as I developed through, the whole process
Mm-hmm.
of going through the grind of advancing in baseball.
So tell me about the advancements, the steps on the way, maybe from high school years and forward.
Well, as you went on, I went on to high school, and you know, that was another process of my life. I had some struggles in going through like the educational
Mm-hmm.
process. I had like a really bad like learning disability
Right.
um, going through school, and it was always a struggle educationally.
Right.
So, and I always wanted to play. I always wanted to play baseball. So I knew I had to. I knew I had to go through the grind of the education to be able
Right.
to compete, in high school, and I wanted to go on and play in college, and I knew that was going to be a challenge, for me. Um, so, there was a lot of steps that we had to take, um, through that. I was in a lot of, like learning disability classes,
Mm-hmm.
and um, so that was a struggle going through that. But I had again a lot of very good support from my family and in my school, um, and then I went on, and when I went on to college, I had a scholarship to go to Westchester University, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it was it was a little bit over my head, but I took it was a scholarship, and it was a Division I program at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was a big honor, and it was a big accomplishment for me. Um, and I thought I was able to handle the academic part of it, um, and I just couldn't handle it.
Right.
And though I tried, it just to say the least, it engulfed me.
Right.
Um, I was in classroom settings that I remember going into my first like classroom, and there was like 100 people there.
Right.
And I was in high school, I was in classes that were like 5, 6
Right.
students,
Mm-hmm.
and it was too much. And I tried, and it just it didn't work out, unfortunately. So I had to pull myself. I didn't pull myself out. I failed out, and
Right.
it was just. I remember I had like a point 4 grade point average, and I tried,
Right.
and it wasn't
Right.
for the lack of effort. And so, a very good friend of mine, mentor, a Roxburgh guy, he was the head coach of Villanova, and I worked his summer camps, and he was a very good friend, George Bennett. Um, I made a call to, and he got me to a school. It was Eastern College, Eastern Baptist school, and it was a small program at the time, but it was a fit for me.
Right.
And so I went there, and they had things that I needed academically. It
Right.
wasn't at the time the baseball program that I wanted, um, but academically it was just what I needed, and to be able to play baseball, it's just what it was. Um, so we went there, and we had successful 4 years. We won some championships, won some NAIA national tournaments,
Mm-hmm.
built a nice program, and um, got my master's degree there. Um,
Wow, that's quite an accomplishment.
yeah, so it was good, and so it was nice. Went
When,
back there and coached, and then had an opportunity to go back, to coach at Villanova, um, and that was kind of nice when I started my like independent like coaching career, and that's when you were able to do kind of both. I started at St. Joe's University when I was still coaching, like I was doing some things in high school after I graduated, and then my first pro job was with actually Howie Bedell, an ex Royal,
hmm
and then I got the job with the Villanova, and I was kind of doing both at the time.
Yep.
And I started getting involved in the independent baseball stuff, and still doing the college baseball stuff, and I didn't know exactly like what direction I was going to take at that point, like um,
What was
if I
the
was going to
what,
be a college baseball coach or
right?
or where it was going to take me.
What was the transition like for you from playing, which you love so much, to coaching?
Well, that was difficult. It was I I didn't get drafted um, when I got out of school, and it was a heartbreaker, because I was a good player,
hmm
like all American, but it just I didn't have. Looking back on it now with my eyes now, I saw the deficiencies that I had, why I didn't get drafted, why you were in the body at the time. You really didn't understand. I was a grinder type guy, but I had deficiencies and things that I didn't have. Kind of understood now, reasons why I wasn't that,
Right.
you know, why I wasn't that guy. Um, but it was tough, you know. Um, it was tough understanding that,
Yeah.
but I started getting opportunities because people kind of understood the passion that I had, and they knew that I was interested in doing something in baseball. Um, and I guess they saw something in me, like maybe he's not going to be a player, but maybe he has those kind of ingredients um, that could do something somewhere in the game. Um, so that's why I guess I start getting opportunities in coaching right away.
Well, so you're doing this sort of dual track. When did the track? Where did the train track go in one direction?
Um, I guess it kind of split off when after like when I was with Howie in Duluth. Um, well, I went for a couple years in Aberdeen, South Dakota,
hmm
and I was still doing the Villanova thing, and I spent like 5 years at Villanova, and we really thought that was going to be like I was going to take over for George Bennett, and I was going to become like the head coach there.
hmm
And I met Ed Ott in Allentown, and he he really he really took me under his wing and really started pushing me to like this is something that you're good at, and started allowing me getting the players for him
hmm
while he was managing. And that's when I got my first like full-time job.
Right.
And that was 1997. I started getting players for him as a coach, but 1998 our second year together, that was my full time. Like I started getting full time players. Like I got like I was the director of baseball operations for him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I really start getting the feel like I could really do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
though I didn't have like the reputation or the name, I started getting really good at signing players and being able to kind of figure this whole thing out. And he allowed me to and trusted me to kind of put his team together.
Well, you obviously there's some kind of knack for that we'll get into in a little bit. But you're basically, I think, in your late 20s at this point. What was your personal life like when you're going through this sort of tough? The season's fit because you could coach college baseball and then have the summer obviously free for the independent ball or whatever you were going to do. What was it like for you personally?
Well, I was just starting our family. So,
Mm-hmm. How'd you meet your wife?
well, we met back in, like right around in high school,
Mm-hmm.
first year in college. So we were kind of dating then, and she kind of knew at that point, like, this guy is pretty serious about this. Um, so she was always like pretty, very supportive with this whole thing. And, always like stayed out of my way when it came to it, which I'll never, I'll be always, very, very grateful because she never, like she was always very supportive
Right.
and never like, you know,
Said, go get a real job.
you go get a real job. You got it. And we weren't making very much money
Mm-hmm.
at this time. We were, I was doing paper routes and working as a cook and, crazy stuff. And she had a full-time job, she
Mm-hmm.
went to Temple and she was working, but I was very, very, very persistent in my mind that I would never let like money like stop me from doing this.
Right.
So I always made sure, like I didn't want to be like lacking with the finances.
Mm-hmm.
So I always did like everything I could to make sure that I kept up with the finances because I didn't want the money to become an issue
Right.
that became like, oh, he's not making it financially, and that ever became. So I used to just do just everything. I remember
Mm-hmm.
had like an auto trader route and like just different crazy stuff.
Right.
I still do, but I had a baseball academy in the off
Mm-hmm.
season and just all kinds of different things. And she was just so supportive and just he just knew that this is what it was.
Right. So you get that opportunity as director of baseball operations. You get the confidence and the feeling that you can do it. What are the next steps?
Well, then, I did it a couple years, and then Ed gets a job with Detroit
Mm-hmm.
with Phil Garner, and he takes a coaching job in 2000 with Gar, and he goes with Detroit. And then I take my first managing job in 2000 in Allentown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that was my first job.
Right. And of course, this is you have one success after another. So from Allentown, where do we go?
So Allentown, I was there for 2 years, and then I get fired after 2 years there. We made the playoffs.
Right.
Our owner, he was always about like he wanted to make a move, so he wanted me to stay on, get the players.